Hey there, friend. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro. Why don't you come on in here, join me. We're going to read today from Psalm 20, verses 6 and 7. Now, I've told you this before, but sometimes my division of these Psalms does damage to the natural layout of the Psalm because I'm trying to do the Psalm in 5 days. So, like today, I have 6 and 7 picked out for our piece because this is the 4th day. But actually, there's a division here between 6 and 7 because 7 begins the second congregational piece. 6 is the caller. So, we should have done 6 by itself and then 7 through 9 by itself. But I didn't do it that way. I divided it up into 2 pieces. So, as I said, sometimes my own division, my artificial division of these daily podcasts is it doesn't go naturally with the division in the Psalm, for which I apologize. But this is Daily Dose Radio, 5 days a week, studying the Psalms verse by verse. So we're trying to get it within that 5-day period and give us enough to meditate on. So 6 and 7 today. Why don't we go ahead and read those? Now know I that the Lord saveth his anointed. He will hear him from his holy heaven, with the saving strength of his right hand. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. Okay, so you see automatically here that you have, in verse 6, you have the first person, I know. And then in verse 7, you have the first person plural, we know, or we will. So you have the caller in verse 6. You have the people beginning here in verse 7, which in verse 7 is a rather popular verse. Many people know this, have memorized this, and love this particular passage. Let's go back to verse 6. Now know I that the Lord saveth his anointed. He will hear him from his holy heaven. All right, and it's fascinating, isn't it? So again, we have this idea of answered prayer. We began with it in verse 1. The Lord will answer you in a day of trouble. Then we had the people saying there in verse 5, at the end of verse 5, the Lord fulfill all thy petitions, speaking back to the caller. So the caller says what's there in verse 1. The people respond to that in verse 5. May the Lord fulfill all your petitions. And then we have, again, more about prayer here in verse 6. I know the Lord saves his anointed and will hear from his holy heaven. So the Lord is going to hear the cry of his people. And this idea of anointed could be many. This word covers a lot of things. Could be his people, could be David's kingdom, David's lineage, could be Christ. Probably. I mean, Christ is seen in every time you speak the word, his anointed, those words, you're thinking of Christ. But it could also mean his people. It could mean his people today, the church, from both the Jewish and the Gentile populations. So this statement, the Lord saveth his anointed. He will hear him from his holy heaven. Amazing that we have the confirmation of all that was said there in verses 1 through 4. Here in verse 6, the caller comes back to it by saying, this is what the Lord does. The people said, we're going to praise him for salvation. Here he says, I know that the Lord saves. So the people are saying, we'll praise him for the salvation that he gives us. The caller comes back again and says, I know the Lord saves. And he hears. And then and again, with salvation there at the third piece of verse 6, with the saving strength of his right hand. Save, save, and save. That's what the Lord does. And the caller here is just praising God for doing that. And I love the way he says it. Now I know that the Lord saves. The Lord answers with the saving strength of his right hand. What a great confession that is. What a marvelous meditation that is. Well, I hope that blesses you today. And tomorrow, come back and I tell you what, I'm just going to pick up in 7. We're going to do 7, 8, and 9 tomorrow. And and finish off the week. So I hope you'll join me then here on Daily Dose Radio.